Now we're going to continue Bereishis. You remember number 1, sun, gun, creation of the universe. 2, glue, Adam was created. Comes in a kit, put him together. 3, tree, who was in the tree? Trust in me, close your eyes and just in me. Oh yeah, the Nachash in the tree. And every detail associated to Perek Gimel, 3 tree, is going to be in chapter 3. So, Klala of Adam and Chava and the Nachash and the earth is all there. Daled is 4, door. Yeah, Cain killed Hevel. 5 hive. Remember 5 hive? Remember 10 generations. If you eat a hive, you stay alive for a long time. In chapter 5. Yeah, 5 alive, you stay alive a long time. If you eat a hive in chapter 5. 10 generations from Adam till Noach. Very good. And they lived a long time. 6 sticks. Oh, 6 sticks. Oh yeah, Hashem warned that he's going to destroy the world if we don't do teshuvah. End of Parshas Bereishis. Noach continues in 6 sticks. It's continuation. Parshas Noach, chapter 6 sticks. What did Noach build the teva from? Oh, very good. Sticks. Excellent. So 6 sticks, 7, heaven. Where did the rain come down from? Excellent. 8, gate. Ararat, but it landed on Mount Ararat. We're just playing with the sound, so it rhymes with 8. And the only way to get out of the gate, when Noach opened the gate in chapter 8 on Mount Ararat, was, and this is just a silly story, it was closed for over a year. The animals had ate the gate to gate out of chapter 8 in the Teva. 9 wine, remember he became drunk in 9 wine? It's not too difficult to make the association. 10 toes, yeah, Toesoe, don't count, toes, 10. Oh, 10 toes. Now this is where we are up to. We did the Chazar to this point, now we continue. Toes. What's happening in chapter 10? Well, that's not too difficult. You've got Toldos Shem. So I remember that all the Toldos of Shem had very large toes. So anyone who had a very large toe was a descendant of Shem. So you've got the descendants of Shem in chapter 10. So descendants of Adam till Noach, chapter 5. Descendants of Shem, chapter 10. Chapter 11, date. Date is 11, remember? 1-1. So what's happening in chapter 8 is Migdal Bavel. The whole story there of the Tower of Bavel, Dor Haflaga. So just imagine you make a tower out of dates. So you've got lots of dates and you make a big tower, and right at the top you put another date and a little Lego chachka, which looks like a Avodah Zarah. So you've got this tower made out of a date. And that reminds you of chapter 11, Migdal Bavel. Very good. So in chapter 11, date is 11. What I imagine is the workers getting into a fight, that when their language got switched to another language and they didn't understand each other, they started pulling dates out of this little tower and started pelting each other until there wasn't much left of the Migdal, which was in this funny story made out of dates. It's just a little model of a Migdal made out of dates, a tower made out of dates. So we are now ending Parshas Noach, and chapter 10 starts Parshas Lech Lecha. Congratulations, you got it this far. Starts with chapter 12, 10 is 12. How are we going to remember that? In our funny story, Avram Avinu, Sarah Imenu, they left Haran to Eretz Canaan, and they packed all their stuff. Now, everyone packs when they leave. In this particular case, what did they pack their stuff in? So this is just a funny story. Imagine packing all your food into a tin, all your clothes in another tin. You use another tin for all your svarim, your books, and all your chachkas and whatever it is, you're packing everything into tins. Now I see the camels leaving Haran, and the tins are being dragged along the ground, attached to the camels, and I can hear this noise, this of the tin. Oh, so annoying, really penetrating, of the tins dragged along the ground, banging against each other and against the stones on the ground, making a lot of noise. And everyone's saying, hey, what's going on? And everyone says, didn't you hear? Avram Avinu, Sarah Imenu are leaving town. They're leaving Haran to Eretz Canaan. Well, they didn't know they were going to Eretz Canaan yet, because he was told to go to a place which Hashem will show them. But you know, in the real story, they actually went to Eretz Canaan eventually, Eretz Yisrael. So in our funny story, tin packed with clothes, food, all the different furniture and everything, all got packed in tins. Oh, tin 12. So chapter 12 is Lech Lecha. Chapter 13, as Lech Lecha unfolds, After Avram Avinu arrives in Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Canaan at that time, what happens? Lot, his nephew, also his brother-in-law, because he was the brother of Sarah Menu. The Torah tells us there wasn't enough room for all their mikneh, all their herds and all their animals. And should we say, Lot had a soft spot for money. He loved money, big time. And he didn't trust anybody, so he, in my silly story, he would stuff his tummy with all his dollar notes, all his money in his tummy. So he had this big, big tummy in chapter 13. Chapter 13, tummy. And Avram Avinu and Lot could not agree to settle their differences. So Avram Avinu, who did not want machlekes, said, look, Lot, you're my nephew, my brother-in-law, you're my brother, Achim Anachnu, we are brothers. Anashim, we are adults. We are adults, we're brothers. So if you're ever in trouble, count on me. But we have a different value system, we've got to go separate ways. So you want to go to the right, I'll go to the left, you go to the left, I'll go to the right arm to the left arm. As far as you try to separate them, they can't go too far, which Avram Avinu was really saying, just like the right arm is never too far from the left, I will never be far. Whether you go to the left or right, I'll be close by if you ever need me. And he kept his promise. But in the meantime, in chapter 13, Tommy, where did Lot go? He moved to Las Vegas. To Sodom. He moved to Sodom, and there he lived right at the entrance. He became the shofet, the judge of the city. Question is, how did he get there? So in my silly story, I see him rolling on his tummy. He's so happy. He's freed from being in the close vicinity of this tzaddik who doesn't make him look too good, because Lot at this point was going in a different direction altogether. So I see him rolling on his tummy down the valley in the Yarden all the way down to Sodom, and there his tummy bangs into the wall. This is just my silly story. Please make sure you know that there is only this. Just remember, he put all his money in his tummy, money in the tummy, money, tummy. So he's got all his money in his tummy, and he rolls down to Sodom. Got that? Good. Chapter 12, Lech Lecha. 13, Avram and Lot split. Very good. Chapter 10, toes. 10 generations from Shem. Very good. What happened in 11? Date. Migdal Bavel. Very good. So Lot split from Avram Avinu, chapter 13, Tommy, and we're now into chapter 14. Chapter 14 is Tyre. In chapter 14, Tyre, 4 kings fight against 5 kings. Lot is taken captive. And Avram Avinu rises to the occasion, passes the test, and immediately goes to save his brother-in-law. Lot, as you know, was caught by the kings, and now Avram Avinu goes out to fight them and miraculously wins the war with sand that turns into spears, daggers, and he gets Lot back. Now, in our silly story, to connect Tyre 14 to chapter 14, what's going on with this war, and Avram Avinu wins the war. So I imagine throwing a tire and it landing on 4 kings who are like hugging each other in a scrum, trying to strategize what they're going to do next in the war. And then they find this giant tire lands on them. They're all stuck inside this big giant. Can you see that in your mind's eye? Chapter 15. Avram Avinu is scared that maybe amongst the casualties he killed a tzaddik. Especially found out that he killed the sons of Shem. Oh, Shem's going to be really angry with me. Avram Avinu was really fearful. He was also fearful that maybe he won the war in the schus and the merit of everything he's done till now. Now he's got no merit left. So he was fearful, and Hashem comes to him in a vision in chapter 15, which is tail. Avram Avinu, Bris Bein Absarim, has a vision of the future of Klal Yisrael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in that vision, puts Avram Avinu into a deep trance, deep sleep. A very deep sleep. Now, in my silly story, I imagine the tail going like this. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. So, tail is 15. Chapter 15, tail, what happened? Bris Bein Absarim. He was in a deep sleep, Bris Bein Absarim. So that's chapter 15. Chapter 16, dish. What happened in chapter 16, dish? That's easy. Hagar was taken on as a second wife, a co-wife, because Sarah Menu didn't have any children and they'd been married a long time. So Sarah came up with the idea, Ruach HaKodesh, to suggest her top student. Hagar was no just little shifcha. She was the top student who was passionate about Yiddishkeit. Ayin, the Sefer from Rabbi Victor Miller, who talks about it in detail. Yishmael was born, and things didn't turn out too good. He was not behaving right, and nor was his mother, Hagar. And so she was thrown out the house. In my silly story, I imagine a dish. I see Hagar on the dish, and I use the dish as a frisbee, and it lands in the desert. 1 malach, 2, 3, 4 malachim come to her in total and negotiate that she should go back to her mistress, Sarah Menu, with some hachnoah, and accept her subservience to the superior righteousness of Sarah Menu. And she agrees. And so the malachim, just in my silly story, put it back on the dish, and as a frisbee lands back. And so the expulsion of Hagar was in chapter Dish 16. 17, Doc, as in, what's up, Doc? So I see a picture of a Doc, and what happens in chapter 17? That's easy. Bris Milah. We're right now at the end of Parshas Lech Lecha, last chapter. Bris Milah took place in chapter 17. So that's easy. I'm going to imagine that there was a doctor just standing next to, in case of any problems, and Baruch Hashem, everything went off fine, and therefore there was no need for the doctor. But I'm imagining Doc in chapter 17, Doc 17 is where Bris Milah took place. Okay, so you finished Lech Lecha. Now let's do a quick review. What happened in chapter 14? 14 is Tyre. 4 kings against 5 kings. Very good. Tail. 15. Bris Milah, sorry. Very good. What happened in Tin? Oh, that's the beginning of Lech Lecha. What happened in end of Noach? Tell me what happened in Toes. Oh, yeah, that's the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Yafet. Very good. Can you please tell me what happened in chapter 11? 11, date. 11, date. Oh, yeah, Migdal Bavel. Very good. As the kids learn the Chazara, they will eventually add on other information that's taking place in that parsha. I just give you a one-liner for each perek, even though other things are taking place. So Yishmael also got Bris Milah. So did the whole of the household of Avram Avinu in chapter 17. But your brain has this one label title, Bris Milah, Doc, chapter 17, and therefore anything that's associated with that will get filed in that file, chapter 17, Perek Yud Zayin, Parshas Lech Lecha. So in Perek Yud Aleph, you'll eventually cover that, after Migdal Bavel, there's a list of the 10 generations from Noach till Avram. So that's also in date. So you can come up with a funny story to make the association for that. But I'm just giving you an example of where there may be more information, but you'll tag it on once you already got the main title and what's going on in that perek. So we're up to chapter 18, Parshas Vayera. Parshas Vayera, we have right at the end of Bris Milah. Remember, there's a story here, so you can really follow the story, and the chapters break it up into the story. You've got chapter 18, where Avram Avinu is recovering from Bris Milah. And how does he recover? Well, he doesn't want to be lying down in bed when it's daytime because, hey, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity of Achnas Zorchim. Achnas Zorchim is a mitzvah deraisa, but he was even more interested in the possibility that helping this person's goof was only one level of Achnas Zorchim, but help that person's mind. Change that person's mind from being over Avodah Zarah to believing in one HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whoa! That excited Avram Avinu to the point where he was sitting in pain in a very hot day at the entrance to his tent, looking for the opportunity to be Mekarev other people. And Hashem eventually saw that, there's no winning against Avram Avinu. He was such a Zaris. He loved the mitzvah so much. He may as well just send some guests in the form of Malachim in order to get Avram Avinu to get back into the tent. But Avram Avinu actually goes out running to them. Now, how do these 3 guests who were like merchants dressed as Arabs, really Malachim, actually arrive? So in my silly story, I see the Malachim coming down from heaven, and they're being held in the claws of a dove. And then the dove is going over the tent of Avram Avinu, and then soon afterwards drops the Malachim, and they parachute down. You can see the parachutes, they're coming down, and they land, all 3 of them, and Avram Avinu notices these 3 Malachim in the distance, and he runs to invite them to his tent. So all that took place in Dov. Chapter 19, Tub. What's taking place in Tub? That's easy. Right after the Malachim came, they gave news on 3 levels. Number 1, be Merapeh Avram Avinu. Well, that's not quite news, but that's good news that he got a refuah. That was Raphael. Number 2 malach and number 3 kind of together. One was to give Besuras Tovas excellent news that Sarah Meinu is going to have a baby boy a year from now, exactly as the sun hits this line which they scratched down on the wall exactly at midday. And the 3rd malach went with the 2nd malach to Sodom to save Lot. So in chapter 19, I imagine the 2 malachim going to Sodom in a tub. That's just my silly story. I don't know if you ever saw the Flintstones where they got their legs sticking out the little car. So I imagine the legs sticking out of the tub and they're running and the tub is going with them and they're in the tub. They're making their way to Sodom to wipe out Sodom and save Lot. So that all happens in chapter tub, and it's also in chapter tub that they get Lot, put him in the tub and get him away while the whole of Sodom is overturned and sulfur rocks come flying down from Shemayim and burn up the entire Sodom, and Lot is saved with his 2 daughters and his wife until she turned around, and that all is in chapter 19 tub. Got it in your mind's eye? Okay, chapter nose N2S 20. Very good. Chapter 20, we're still in Parshas Vayera. Chapter 18, Dov, 3 Malachim. Chapter 19, Tub, Lot is saved from Sodom. Very good. Chapter 20, Nose. What happened in chapter 20? So in chapter 20, Sarah Imenu is kidnapped. She's taken to Avimelech. She was kidnapped already in chapter 12, Tin. That's when she arrived in Eretz Canaan. There was a famine and they went down to Mitzrayim. But that's an additional part you could put into the story of Tin. But the etzem of Tin was Lech Lecha. So now we're in her 2nd kidnapping by Avimelech. And both Avram and Sarah are both claiming that she's just a sister to Avram Avinu when really they're married. And Avimelech takes Sarah Imenu as a wife. Sarah Imenu, what does she do? She tells the malach who's guarding her to bang Avimelech on the nose. Now that's actually the Medrash. The Medrash says she actually did tell him, Hake, hit him, and he gave him some whacks on all the extremities of his body, including his nose. So in my funny story, I just see his nose like swelling from all the hits. Every time he tried to come close to take Sarah Imenu, she said, hit him, and whack, 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 whack. His nose was so big and swollen that he couldn't see anymore because it was just right. The nose was just so big. Chapter nose, what happened in chapter nose? Chapter 20. Oh, Avimelech tried to take Sarah Imenu, it didn't quite work, and his nose like swelled from all the hitting from the malach. So that in chapter 20. Up to 21, nut. What happened after chapter 20? Chapter 20, she was kidnapped, Sarah Imenu was kidnapped, and afterwards she gave birth to Yitzhak Avinu. And people were saying, hey, maybe Yitzhak is born from Avimelech, Chas v'shalom. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu made an ace, and Yitzhak's features as an infant were identical to Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu makes a massive party, Mishte Gadol. Gadol, Chazal tell us, was because Gedolim, great people, were invited. In fact, 31 kings who were there at that time residing there at Canaan with their top prime ministers, that's 62 people total, came to the party, and it was a nut party. Nut 21 nut. What was a nut party? They served nuts. First of all, there were quite a few nuts there. Pare was there. Pare was related, of course, because his daughter Hagar was married to Avram Avinu. Pare was a mechutan. So he was at the party, and Oig was there, and so was Avimelech. I mean, all these big nuts were invited to this nut party they served. Pistachio nuts and peanuts and walnuts and every type of nut. And the story is a bit nuts too, the way I'm describing it. Chapter nut 21 is Leidas Yitzhak. Yitzhak is born. The silly story is completely irrelevant. It's only a way to get the story in. If you're not comfortable telling it to the kids the way I'm telling it to, you'll say it less graphically. But the main point is I'm pretty sure they did serve nuts, and there were a couple of nuts there. Paro, I think, is fairly accurate to say he was a bit of a nut, and so was Avimelech. And Oig was for sure a nut. So you put all these nuts together, you got a nut party. And they're serving nuts. At the nut party, Yitzhak is born in chapter 21. Chapter 22 ends Parshas Vayera, the Akedah. 22 goes with onion. 22 is onion. Onion is 22. So in chapter 22, I imagine that at the Akedah, I see onions being fried on top of the wood, and that's how I remember the Akedah was in chapter 22. So the ram that was substituted for Yitzhak Avinu was fried with onion, big onion. If you see onion all over the ram, if you want to see two onions sticking out on the horns of the ram, you could do that too. Whatever, can you smell the onion? This is fried ram and onions. So whatever which way you want to remember it, 22 onion, that's the Akedah. Okay, we're ready for Parshas Chayei Sarah, chapter 23. Right after the Akedah, Sarah Imenu passed away. 23 is name. I'm using the word name, not Noam. I'm using the word name because I see the plaque of Sarah's name, Sarah Imenu, in Hebron at the Maras Machpelah where she was buried. So the whole story of the burial of Sarah Imenu I see in chapter 23, name. Actually, if you go to Hebron, Ad HaYom, you will actually see at the Keva, the place where Sarah Imenu was buried, on the rock there, they actually have a big plaque which says Sarah Imenu. So that's where I remember it. If you want to see it in like a neon lights, or if you want it psychedelic or very beautifully decorated, the name of Sarah Imenu at Maras Machpelah. So the burial of Sarah Imenu took place in chapter 23, name. Chapter 24, following the story, Avram Avinu realizes, Yitzhak is 37, just got through the Akedah, and I've just buried my wife. Said Avram Avinu, let me find a zivug for Yitzhak. So the entire story of Eliezer looking for a zivug, a partner for his master's son Yitzhak, is in chapter 24. 24 is Nero. Do you remember we said Nero is this Roman general, a Roman warrior? That's not someone who's like warring all day, he's someone who goes to war. So warrior, war. I see Eliezer dressed up as Nero, and he arrives at the well, and in my silly story I see him fall in the well and water goes flying everywhere, and Rivka comes and asks Eliezer if he would like some water. Of course he's inside the well and is surrounded by it, and so that's just my silly story. So I see Nero tripping over the well into the well, and Rivka coming and offering if he would like some water. So all that is in my silly story just to connect 24 Nero to chapter 24. Moving to chapter 25, we're right now at the end of Parshas Chayei Sarah, just 3 prokim. Perek Chaf Gimel, Chaf Daled, and Chaf Hei. We're up to Chaf Hei, nail. 25 is nail. Nail 25. What's going on in chapter nail 25? In chapter 25 is told us Yishmael. Yishmael dies, and he's nailed into his coffin. Aha, very good. And the last nail is banged into the coffin of Yishmael. So can you see nail, coffin, Yishmael died. So the death of Yishmael and Toldos Yishmael, the names of the generations of his children from his various wives, is all laid out in chapter nail 25. Got that? Very good. Now we move to Toldos. Parshas Toldos continues the same chapter 25. It's also nail, but we've got a different story because different teichen, different content is taking place in chapter 25 of Parshas Toldos. Now we go back to the story of Yitzhak, who now, through Rivka, gave birth to twins. Mazel tov, mabruk. 2 boys. Wonderful. Yaakov and Esav are born in chapter 25. The narrative goes very quickly straight to Avram Avinu's demise. He dies in chapter 25. Yitzhak is mourning the passing of his father, Avram Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is busy making soup for his father, Yitzhak, lentil soup. Now comes along Esav, and he's just killed someone. He's done a couple of other terrible affairs, including Avodah Zarah. He is exhausted, and he says, I'm so tired. I could die. I'm just exhausted. I'm going to die. And Yaakov Avinu says, hey, this is a great opportunity. And he says, I'll tell you what, you want some of this soup, right? Yeah, that's what I want some of your soup. So I'll give it to you if you sell your birthright. So he says, what do I need the birthright for? I'm going to die anyway. I don't need Olam Haba. I want Olam Hazeh anyway. So I'll go for the soup. So he takes the soup. Now, in my silly story, the soup is nail soup, rusty nail soup. Esav has a stomach like made of iron. This is my silly story. And he loves nail soup, rusty nail soup. He loved rusty nail soup. So he gobbles it down, literally takes the whole pot and pours it He can't even feel the nails going down his stomach. I mean, they don't penetrate his stomach walls because he's got walls made out of iron. And this is all in chapter Nail. So nail soup in chapter Nail 25, not to be confused with nail, the last nail in the coffin of Yishmael in chapter 25, which is in Parshas Chayesara. So you got nail twice, end of Parshas Chayesara, going into Toldos. Toldos, referring to the generations of Yitzhak, who of course are Yaakov and Esav. We're up to Perek Chavav 26. Nosh, N, 2, S-H, sh is 6, 26. Chapter 26 is Parshas Toldos. We've got the story with Avimelech spying on Rivka, who is told that she's only the sister, but really she's married, we know that. And Avimelech is seriously considering taking her for a wife, but he doesn't want to get into the same problem as last time with Sari Menu. So he's spying on her and finds out, of course, they really are married. So that all happens in chapter Nosh 26. There's other things taking place, as you can see from the picture in this card. You see there was a fight over the 3 wells of Esek, Sitna, and Rechovis. So that all took place also in Nosh. I'm just giving you a one-liner for this particular parak, which is Rivka in the palace of Avimelech. The way we're going to remember that is that when she was released, that's when Avimelech gave her lots of presents. And the present that we're thinking of in our funny story is a machine of Nosh, a Nosh machine. And the reason why it's a present is because you don't have to put any coins in, so you get it for free. So it's a Nosh machine. So you can see all the Nosh inside the machine. That's in chapter 26. The reason I'm taking the liberty of using one line for each perek is because I'm trying to emulate the Torah itself, where, as you will recall, every single parsha has a name. What's the reason why that name is chosen for that parsha? So go figure it out. Bereishis. Why did Chazal choose the word Bereishis for the entire parsha of Bereishis? Not a perek, the entire parsha. Well, let's think this way. If you're going to look for a siman, that's the key word. If you're going to look for a sign, a siman, there will be a trigger word. For the entire Parshas Bereishis, I'm giving the word away already, but if you ask, what's the most pronounced event that's taking place in the starting of the entire Parsha, even though there are 6 prakim there, you would probably select, in the beginning, Hashem created the heavens and the earth. So we'll use the word Bereishis because it's not just a starting word, but it encapsulates what the Parsha is really all about. So what's the next Parsha in the Torah? Parshas Noach. Well, what would you say is the main event that's taking place over there? So the Parsha could have been called Mabul, and you would still have known that's Parshas Noach, but the Torah has chosen a word that is right near the beginning of the Parsha, but it also encapsulates what the entire story is about, because it all gravitates not around the event of the Mabul, but around a person who survived the Mabul because of his righteousness, Noach. Go to Parshas Lech Lecha. Why did Chazal choose Lech Lecha? So what I'm sharing with you is that you can go through every single parsha in the entire Torah. You'll find that the vast majority are one word, sometimes 2 words, like Soisa Bracha, Chaye, Sarah, etc. But the chosen word or words is a siman that reflects an encapsulation, a summary of the entire parsha that becomes a click word that clicks you into the rest of the story. So I'm trying to emulate that same concept in selecting one line. In this particular case, even though you've got much more text that might be talking about other events in Parshas Toldos Perek Chavav, nevertheless, the starting point of that perek is Avimelech eyeing Rivka with the possibility of taking her as a wife and giving her presents. And in this case, we make just a silly story, a Nosh machine. But the title we've given for that perek is Rivka in the palace of Avimelech. So that's my explanation for why we've got one line for every single perek. So moving to Perek Chav Zayin, we are still in Parshas Toldos. That's where we go back to the story now of Yaakov and Esav. This particular story is the entire story of Yaakov getting the blessing instead of Esav. So Yaakov taking the blessing instead of Esav is in this chapter, and this particular picture shows you Esav coming with his red hair. Remember, he was Edom, he was red complexion, red hair, and he's coming towards the tent, and Yaakov is just getting the bracha at the end of the blessing from his father Yitzhak Avinu, and he leaves the second Esav walks in. So that whole story takes place in chapter Chav Zayin, chapter 27, which corresponds to Nek. N2, CK is hard C, so it's 7 to 27. In chapter 27, Nek. How do we make an association? What's our trigger story for this? So my silly story is that when Esau finds out that Yaakov got my bracha, I'll break his neck. So I imagine him saying, I'm going to break his neck, 27. Oh, where did Yaakov get the bracha from his father instead of Esau, impersonating Esau? Oh, that was in chapter 27. Moving forward, this is the last chapter now of Parshas Toldos, chapter 28. So in Perek Kaf Ches, following the chronological sequence of the events, Yaakov Avinu has now got the blessing from his father. Esau says, I'm going to break his neck, and he's planning to kill Yaakov. And Rivka finds this out, Baruch HaKodesh, and tells Yitzhak, you know what? I really think we should send Yaakov to find a wife from my father's house. And so Yitzhak goes for this and calls in Yaakov Avinu and sends him to Padan Aram. On the way, he stops for 14 years in the yeshiva Shem Ve'eva, but this particular picture shows us him leaving. What happened in this parak is that Eliphaz, the son of Esav and the father of Amalek, Eliphaz is actually instructed by his father to go and kill Yaakov Avinu. It happens to be that Eliphaz was a Talmid of Yitzhak Avinu and learnt a lot from Yaakov Avinu. So how can he kill Yaakov Avinu, who is his uncle and his Rebbe is Talmid, but he's also got a dilemma because his father told him to kill him, so that's Kibbutz Av. So what's he going to do? So in my silly story, I imagine him coming with a knife. Knife, 28. Knife, N is 2, F is 8. So in chapter 28, Chav Ches, knife, I see Eliphaz chasing Yaakov Avinu with a knife, threatening to kill him. And Yaakov Avinu asks, what are you doing? And Eliphaz says, I come to kill you. I said, why do you want to kill me? Because my father told me to, but you're my Rebbe, and I don't want to, I can't kill my Rebbe, but I have to listen to my father. What should I do, Rebbe? So Yaakov Avinu says, that's a really good kasha. I tell you what, you remember we learned together that if someone is an ani, really dirt poor, he's considered like a mace, he's dead. So I tell you what, take all my clothes, take all my belongings, everything, and go back to your father, and you can say I'm dead. Why? Because now I'm an ani. You don't tell him that, but just tell him he's dead. And so, oh, Rabbi, what a good idea! And so he goes back with his knife, and if you want, I can see him carrying all the clothes of Yaakov Avinu on the back of his knife like a knapsack at the end of a stick. So instead of that, I see his knife in 28, and Eliphaz did not end up killing Yaakov Avinu. Baruch Hashem. Now that is actually in Rashi, it's not in the Parsha itself, but I'm just giving you that as a way to anchor the information of Yaakov Avinu leaving his home to Haran. So that concludes knife in chapter 28 of Parshas Toldos. Now we're continuing knife, chapter 28, in Parshas Vayetze. So in Parshas Vayetze, Chav Ches, knife, you have a picture of Yaakov Avinu lying down and having his dream with the ladder going up into the skies. Yaakov Avinu actually, as you know, slept at the place of the Har HaBayis, which is where the Beis HaMikdash was and eventually will be again. B'mehera v'yameinu, amen. And the ladder was going towards Luz, which is the place where if you live there, you never die. So in the picture, you got the ladder, and that's of course where the Malachim were going up and coming down. The Malachim going up, leaving Yaakov Avinu, and the ones coming down to protect him. So this is a summary of the entire Perek Kaf Ches, the dream of Yaakov Avinu. So even though more took place in that dream, because he learned 14 years in Shem Ve'eva, however, that's not in the Pasuk. It's Meduyak by Chazal from the Psukim, but it's not actually in the Pasuk itself. Yaakov Avinu built an altar over there, a Mizbeach, and then he headed off to Haran itself. And all that is in Perek Kaf Ches, knife. How are you going to remember this? So my silly story, I imagine that in the dream I see a ladder made of knives. So each rung is a knife, and each part of the ladder that connects one rung to the next on both sides of each rung is also made of knives. So I see shiny knives all the way up to Shemayim on this ladder made of knives. I'm just conjuring that up so that you'll make an association between a knife, ladder, dream of Yaakov Avinu. Okay, we're up to Perek Chavtes. We're still in Parshas Vayetze. Perek Chavtes 29 goes with Nib. Nib, N is 2, B, P are both 9. Nib is 29. So in chapter 29, in this picture, you see Yaakov Avinu, he's marrying 2 wives. In this particular picture, you've got Rachel and Leah, and through Leah, he has his first 4 children. I call them Rashli, just as Rashi Tevis, an abbreviation for Rashli. And what is that? R for Ruvain, Sh for Shimon, L for Levi, and the Yud of Rashli is for Yehuda. So Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. So I think of Nib, Rashli. What am I going to do with the Nib? So I see Yaakov Avinu writing out not a ksuba once, but twice, and I see the nib breaking because there's so much to write. You're marrying 2 wives. He didn't marry them at exactly the same time. It was a week apart. He had to work another 7 years to get Rachel, and that was the condition after he was tricked by Lavan. He was a gangster, a con man. He makes Al Capone look like Winnie the Pooh. Anyway, that's beside the point. So in chapter 29, Nib, you've got Yaakov Avinu marrying 2 wives. So you've got more taking place in this parak. Of course, you have the information again on the back of every card. The main point is really the marriage of Yaakov Avinu to Leah and then Rachel. It was meant to be Rachel first, and he, of course, was tricked by Lavan. So you see 29, nib. I see the nib breaking, and he has to replace another nib, and then put another nib and another nib. So I just see lots of nibs strewn all over the ksuba, where he has to write yet another ksuba with the pen.